Hello, welcome to Staring to the Abyss. I am hearing these weird gurgling, crackling, howling, strange sounds coming from the intercom, and I'm a bit scared right now. But my name's Richard Gerlach, and with me, as always, is Matt Brandenburg.
Oh man, I'm just like so goth sitting in my dark room making paintings. My mom just doesn't understand.
And Villain Mist, unfortunately, could not make today's podcast, but in her place is the mysterious Carson Winter.
Hello, all. I don't think I've ever been described as mysterious. I just a regular 300-pound man who takes 2 shits in the morning before he gets dressed, and here I am with my coffee, ready to take at least 3 more before lunch.
You know I'm a 2-shit 300-pound man myself, so we'll get along just fine.
It that happens to all of us. I'm at least 2 or 3 a day. It's good. That means you're regular, you know?
Oh yeah, man.
Honestly, this conversation is perfect for Matt.
I'm like, you're running at peak efficiency because you're pooping every time you finish eating. So like your body is just using it all and then just pushing it out. It's perfect. I'm glad to hear you have a healthy body.
Perfect.
It's fucking weird though when you like eat an apple and it like skips the line. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
100%. You're like, hey, hold your turn. There's other things in here.
I swear I just had like lasagna 8 hours ago and I just had the apple 3 hours ago. How does this fucking apple come out first? That's what I want to know. Science answers.
What's this apple's trick?
Yeah.
How does it know like the back way out? It's like a secret. It just knows.
Did it pay for the VIP line skip? Like what's going on here?
It's all like, look at those suckers.
Ticketmaster.
Yeah, Ticketmaster. It's the damn fees, man. Those get you every time.
It paid the meet and greet fee. That's what it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy. We've made it. I love because like somehow my body knows when it's not a work day because those are the days when it's like, man, we're just gonna take our sweet time. And I'm like, hey, I got stuff to do, but I'll keep playing my picture cross game on my phone. That's cool.
My system has worked itself into right a time where as soon as I get to work in the morning, my body knows. So you're going to that toilet as soon as you put your backpack down.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not like clogging a toilet a day, I mean, I don't know what you're doing.
You're just wrong.
And it's even better if you're doing it on the clock. I agree.
Exactly. I mean, you might as well get paid for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Boss makes a dollar while I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time.
That's right.
Exactly. And I'm like, whatever. These suckers that come in after me, they can deal with it.
It's like weaponized.
My own little form of rebellion. And I'm like, I can't even smell it, so I don't even know. It's cool.
When you're just like out there taking defiant shits just to ruin someone else's day.
That's the definition of punk rock in your 30s.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's like when you're lactose intolerant, but you're just not going to admit it to yourself, and you just keep eating pounds of cheese every day. And you're like, surely it's normal to take 8 shits a day. Surely that's normal. Like, I don't even need to bring it up to my doctor.
Right. You're supposed to be in pain when it happens.
Everyone else's asses is like bleeding right now, right? Like,
right.
Normal.
It's normal, right?
It's got to be common to have red toilet paper. I love it. People are like, "Oh man, this is gonna be a great Ligotti discussion."
We haven't even announced that the story is Thomas Ligotti's a lost her at Twilight. We just drove right into the We just dove into the shit. Just
I want everyone out there to know that I'm a highbrow literary author.
I mean, our listeners know that we're very highbrow people, so
Yeah, we are. I in fact have my monocle and my I don't know, what do people drink that are fancy? A port.
Sure.
I got my nice wooden pipe.
There you go.
Top hat on.
my crimson robe. I'm good. It's gotta be crimson in case I have leakage. So
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. Well, before
Let me just
we
talk about
dive
this.
into
Hey, you know what? We know Ligotti loves bathroom stuff.
Do we?
Yeah. You know what?
Is that canonical? Like,
I
what
think
Matt
it is.
Cardin interview was that in?
Jump Pageant is the bathroom horror story.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
bringing up Cardin, it's funny because I think that's in his whatever the interview book is, the What Damon Said or What Demon Said. One of the interviews they talk about bathroom stuff.
Really?
Yes, and
So
even
I want
like
you guys like to start bringing on like all these very intelligent, very smart horror writers that have some really deep existential thematics, but only ask them like how many times a day they shit.
and like
that
how
should be like the question we ask everybody now.
it should be.
I think this could define your guys' brand.
I think so.
Yeah, I think our brand is though staring into the brown.
It'll be at all the cons. All the writers will be like, "Oh man, did they talk to you about your poop?" And they're like, "Yeah, they did too. It was kind of nice. It made us human."
Is it like a kink thing? Is it just an interest thing? Like, what's the deal with them and the poop?
They
I mean,
requested
come on.
pre-interview photos.
Like, I need to see how much you fill up this toilet.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it just feel better like if you could go back in time and like interview Shirley Jackson, but no, she filled it to the brim every time?
Find out that like that scene from Dumb and Dumber was inspired by Shirley Jackson.
Yeah.
Like man,
She's
she
just
was
out there like wrecking gas stations.
Yeah.
Found H.P. Lovecraft once got evicted because of shit he took destroyed his apartment.
I can see that.
No man, you know he's
Jeez.
the guy that did it like in a mason jar and kept it.
I'm calling it. HP, he had like rabbit shit, so they were round.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah.
You just look at that guy, and he didn't take real shits. Dude's a nerd. He doesn't know.
Dude's a nerd.
I don't know. Apparently, his diet was like fried food all the time. So,
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Yeah.
That makes sense. He was so logy from all that fried food that he just like would pass out on the toilet.
I think that's hilarious. Now I'm just like picturing like Lovecraft with the palate of like a 5-year-old just eating his chicken nuggies every day.
Mom, can you make the chicken nuggets again?
They're dinosaur shaped.
Oh yeah, you got to get the dino nuggets. That's the
You gotta
legit
get the
shit.
dino nuggies. It's all about the dino nuggies.
Can you cut them up for me? My teeth are so soft. They've seen the dark void and now they're soft teeth. And Mrs. Lovecraft, Mommy Lovecraft is like, oh, HP. I understand. I don't know. What's his name? Harry?
Oh, Howie.
Howard.
Howie.
Name's Howard,
Howie.
so it's Howie. Oh, Howie.
Oh, Howie. Sit down. Let me tell you another story.
You need like a Psycho style series or something of like Howie and his mom.
Changing his diaper. Oh, this is a really small one again today. Good job. Here's an apple. And he's like, those apples are the unnameable evil. They find their ways through first.
Are there any agents? Are there anybody agents listening to the show? Like,
Yes. Somebody come on.
copyright. Like, you can't steal this. Please reach out.
this idea is gold.
HBO, we're waiting.
Yes. You guys make crazy cartoons.
You guys need to do Last of Us, so we got you.
Oh man, and it's like a really cool first intense like scene to open it up, and he's like sitting there and he's looking all serious, and it's a camera close up to his face, and it pans out, he's on a toilet. He's like just groaning, and HP Lovecraft.
But that's the whole episode, is just him on the toilet groaning. There's nothing else.
Well, yeah, that's bold television.
It's different angles. You get different angles. You get some slow-mo. You get some snap edits. You get a flashback to when he completed this shit and how he's going to feel once he's done completing this bowel movement. And then, just as you hear the plop, the credits roll.
Wow.
Just the disembodied voice of his mom, like, "Are you okay in there? Leave me alone."
I like to imagine it's a proper season finale or season premiere too, and it's like his fucking longest stalker or something. Like it's 3 hours long.
Like, man, hour 2 was just intense. The way he was sweating.
I can feel that pressure myself.
At that point, it's just like a one-man show. Like that could be taken on tour.
Oh my god, I love it. We can show you the real Lovecraft. None of this hoity-toity stuff.
The kind ST Joshi doesn't want you to see.
See the real Howie.
But wouldn't it actually like just blow your mind knowing that existed, this hypothetical project, and then seeing like executive producer ST Joshi on it?
That would be amazing.
I think I'd just die and go to heaven at that point. I don't think life could get any better. Like, as far as absurdity, like I would just see that and be like, oh, okay, well, fuck it, I'm done. Like, this is perfect. I don't know how I can engage with life after this.
I love it. He's like, there is a Lovecraft project. I must be tied to it. I don't care. That was our show. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
for having me on, guys. It's been great.
Carson, anytime, be sure to buy Soft Targets and Sound where you can buy books online. Yeah. Our listeners are going to be like, wow, it took them, 5 minutes before they fell off the rails in this episode?
They finally cracked.
I have that effect sometimes.
But all right, for real. Carson Winter has a novella out called Soft Targets. It's actually fantastic. Like, I read the whole thing in one night. I couldn't put it down. It's definitely worth reading. But if you're not comfortable with reading about mass shootings, you might want to hold off for a little bit. But that being said, it is a very powerful book. And I hope it finds its audience.
Thank you. Yeah. I've been really stoked so far, actually, about the response. I feel like it's getting into the hands of people who vibe with it for whatever reason. And, you know, Tenenbergs has done a great job putting kind of those content warnings first and making sure that, you know, it's not misrepresented.
Yeah. Well, it's like, because if you pick up like a conspiracy against the human race, you know you're in for something heavy.
Yeah.
But you don't always know that going into a book.
Mm-hmm.
But no, literally, like I think it was like Tuesday night. I'm like, I'm just gonna go read this just because I've had the arc and I wanted to check it out. And next thing I knew, I just couldn't put it down. I was like, the whole thing was done in the night.
Perfect. But love to hear it.
It's amazing.
We can definitely talk a little bit about your novella before we dive into Ligotti, but we'd like to take some time to talk about some media recommendations from the last week. Good, bad, fun, anything in between. Like we're down to have some discussion.
Okay.
And this is, much to Matt's dismay, is going to become our Rich's anime corner for like 10 minutes.
Okay.
because 3 dope ass animes have come out that I've been kind of hyped for, and the pilots for all 3 were fantastic. The first one was Hell's Paradise, which is about a man who pretty much can't die, and he is wanted for execution due to a crime he's committed, and nothing can kill him.
Do they know he can't die?
Yes.
So why? Okay.
They keep on trying the next extreme thing, the next extreme thing, the next extreme thing, and it fails. So he's talked into joining on this thing where
The A-Team?
yeah, especially Mr. T, full there. No, the Emperor of Japan found an island where he believes they have the elixir for eternal youth, and everyone who's made it to this island has never returned.
Oh.
So the Emperor has taken all these criminals who are waiting execution and is pretty much saying, we want you to go to this island. If you agree, the one who makes it back with this elixir, their life will be spared and everybody else will be executed.
Interesting.
Or not even make it back if they can't. I've read the manga this is based on. The manga's really great. It has a really cool mythology that builds with this island. And the monster design there's lots of monsters, so the design's fucking awesome. And it's some really great action as it goes on as well, with some cool horror vibes the more it kind of builds up.
Nice. What's stopping the criminals from drinking the Fountain of Youth?
To be honest, plot, but also to be honest, as soon as they get to the island, they just start fighting each other anyway.
Oh, okay.
And it becomes this giant like battle royale free for all type thing where it's every man for himself.
Okay. And is it like an actual fountain of youth? Like, is it like constantly running? I don't know, water.
They don't know.
Like the tourist attraction.
It's the myth or the story is that they believe it's located there. There's some sort of special treasure located there, and the Emperor wants that for himself.
Okay. And then the guy who can't die, like what happens? Like if they chop off his head, does his head grow back?
Pretty much what it is every anime or manga has this kind of power source type thing where characters have some sort of magical power, and his power is an offshoot of ninjutsu, where it just creates a shield around himself. So like they try to chop off his head, and the sword just breaks on his neck.
I see. Does he get older?
I mean, it takes place over the course of like a year. So
okay. I mean, like that would be like the ultimate death. Old age. So,
but I believe he does age. Yeah.
Okay.
But
so eventually he'll die.
It's not so much focused on that. It's more focused on what the fuck is really happening in this island once they get there.
Cool. Okay.
And how will they get back?
And what was
another one
this one again?
It's a Hell's Paradise.
Okay.
And you can stream it on Crunchyroll. So.
Crunchyroll.
Another one that's also on Crunchyroll is called My Home Hero, which is a fucking stupid name. But it's about this average.
Agreed.
It's about this average salaryman who has an average life, and all he loves is his daughter and his family and writing mystery books that have really shitty reviews to them. And he goes to meet his daughter one day, and her face is bruised up. And he goes and finds out that she's dating a Yakuza guy who's beating on her.
That's not good.
And he later hears that he plans to kill her to steal her grandmother's inheritance to her. So
but he's still alive.
Our main character murders him.
Oh.
To protect his daughter.
Nice.
And later begins having to wage a one-man war against the Yakuza because the man murdered was the son of the local Yakuza boss.
So all right, I'm digging that.
Like, cat and mouse game between this average salary man and the Yakuza.
Nice.
It's the pilot episode is really good. The animation quality, it's definitely on the lower budget side, but the plot itself is really good. The voice acting is really solid. And I've heard the manga gets really intense, so I'll see how the show goes. It's one of the mangas I haven't read. I never heard about it till author friend of mine, Rami Unger, he's like, you got to check this anime out, and I'm like, okay. And the pilot was great, and the last one is I got to get the Disney sucks. So the last one is an anime. The English translation is Heavenly Delusion, but they refuse to give it the English translation, so you can find it on Hulu under the name Tengoku Daimakyo. But
and
it's
that's due to Disney.
Yeah, it's Disney has the licensing rights for it, so it's on Hulu.
Okay.
And this one is about a post-apocalyptic Earth, and these kind of two teenagers who are living in this post-apocalypse, and they seem to come from a society that was shielded off from the destroyed worlds, and now they're kind of adventuring through the destroyed worlds to kind of learn more about the past and what happened to civilization as they're trying to just go about their lives, survive, and at the end it reveals there's these crazy bloodthirsty monsters that now exist in the post-apocalypse, and they got to fight back against those too.
I mean, like, if we've learned anything from movies, that's what happens.
Yes, exactly. And that was actually, the animation was fantastic, and it was a really great pilot. And I think that one might be the sleeper anime hit of the year. Either I think My Home Hero has a chance of being a sleeper hit just because the plot's really interesting.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna be seeing Funko Pops of these at the mall soon.
I'm see you're definitely going to see Hell's Paradise Funko Pops. I can tell you that.
Okay.
That's gonna be a really big one.
Cool.
Besides that, I also watched The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How was that? I haven't seen it.
It was a lot of fun.
Okay, cool.
It's really funny. I kind of wish they went with Nicolas Cage's idea, but I understand why they didn't. His idea for the movie is he was going to play the drug dealer, and the other actor would play the movie's Nicolas Cage.
I like that.
That was the original idea.
That's pretty funny, actually. I like that idea.
Yeah.
But when Pedro Pascal got the role, Nicolas Cage felt that it would be better if Pedro Pascal played that character.
You know, it's funny, that movie, like, it seemed really huge. Everyone was loving the idea of it, and then I didn't hear like anything about it after it came out.
It's really funny.
Okay.
Like the humor is really spot on. Nicolas Cage is just kind of full Cage, which I was listening to an interview, and one of the people who worked on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, when Nicolas Cage did his first reading as Noir Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They were like, that was good, but we want something more Nicolas Cagey. And he just goes, you want the full Cage?
Oh my God.
Which honestly, I expect Nicolas Cage to be like that. Like, that's just kind of what I expect at this point.
He's got like a little knob on his neck and he turns it to full Cage. He's like Bane. He's like Bane. He's like, all right, I'm gonna do it, but like, I don't know how long I can take it.
That's what I aspire to as an artist.
They have the full Cage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like,
that's right.
The movie itself is just really funny because, like, it's pretty much Nicolas Cage playing a fake version of himself, and he's also this, like, in this fake version of himself, his family kind of hates him, and his acting career is going down the drain. And he takes this pathetic invitation to go to this guy's birthday party as a guest for $1 million just because he needs the money.
Yeah, I dig that. I would do that.
And then it turns out the guy's a big drug lord, and Nicolas Cage gets recruited by the CIA to try to stop him.
Tale as old as time.
Exactly. It's a really funny
Gilgamesh.
I think it did happen. It might have happened. I think it happened in the lost part of Gilgamesh, where the slabs are too faded, so we have trouble translating some parts of the epic. I think this is
this is the third act of Gilgamesh, I'm sure.
Yeah, they were like, "What is full Cage?" I don't understand his translation. We'll just skip it. It'll be fine. No one will know.
Have you ever listened?
The tablets foretold.
Tablet, yeah.
Besides that, the only other things for me this week are the new Ted Lasso what came out.
Oh yeah, I've been watching that.
Ted Lasso is so good.
It is.
I have yet to watch that show.
Man, you should watch it.
You should watch it.
It's a crier, like in a good way though. Like
it makes you laugh and cry almost every episode.
Like it's just so optimistic and hopeful as a show, but not in a corny way.
In a realistic way.
It gives you like the fucking Hallmark commercial cries like every time. Like you're just like, oh, people are so good to other people, and then you just fucking lose it.
They'll also have that like small emotional gut punch too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll just put in the small because like what was it this would be like a slight spoiler for like episode for this season, but like the first season there's a subplot of like Ted's wife wanting to have a divorce with him, and like the end of episode 1 of this season, he's talking to his son on webcam, and his son has the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's like, "Who gave that to you?" And he goes, "Mom's friend Jacob." And it just kind of ends there, and it's like, oh man, that because like just because Ted is a character, it's like, oh, that's not going to sit right with Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got some really strong writing. It's a great show, I think.
Yeah, like I originally had zero interest in watching Ted Lasso because I was like,
Same.
it's a comedy about soccer. Like, why do I don't care about this, so I don't want to watch it. And then I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to give it a try, and I literally binged season 1 in like 2 days. I just couldn't stop watching.
Maybe one day I'll watch it.
And Nate, I want to see him get served so bad. Like Nate's pissing me off so much this season.
Nate's such an interesting like antagonist, just because you can totally understand. You could understand where he's coming from and not necessarily condone it. But you can see like that deep insecurity and stuff within the character.
Yeah.
And I both pity and, am frustrated by the things Nate does, but I don't quite hate him. It's really cool writing how much empathy is in the show for even its villain.
And I think the real villain is Rupert. Like I think Rupert's kind of the main villain guy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Nate's kind of like
Jaws.
Yeah,
like
Nate's also
Bond
just
movies.
Nate's also just really insecure.
This description is like because again, I have no idea. You're talking about like Infinity Gauntlets and villains. I'm like, what is this show? And there's soccer involved. I'm like, this is like, what is happening?
It's just a charming slice of life, like dramedy, really.
Yeah.
So it's not as insane as I'm making it in my head.
No, it's really just your basic kind of slice of life dramedy, but it's really, really strong writing and character work.
So there's no Nick Fury.
No, there's no Nick Fury.
The worst part about it is it's on Apple TV, which is like the only reason to have it, I think.
Yeah.
There's a couple good shows on Apple TV.
Are there? I haven't watched anything else.
Check out Shrinking. Shrinking's really good.
Okay.
Mythic Quest is
really funny.
Okay.
Also, what was it? Slow Horses is really good as well. That's a spy thriller with Gary Oldman.
All be like fake programs that you guys are making up on the spot. Like
you should really watch this show called Howie. It's amazing.
But for like Slow Horses is a good spy thriller. Shrinking is another really good dramedy and has some of the same people from Ted Lasso behind it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And Mythic Quest is really funny. Mythic Quest is a very solid comedy. I've also been watching another show that I had no interest in, but for some reason I'm now find myself binging, is Succession.
Love Succession. It's like my favorite show. Succession
is incredible. Like I'm still on season 1.
Oh, I love it.
It gets better. But like I'm having a blast with this show. It's ridiculous.
It's so good.
It is so funny. Like I love it so much.
I haven't watched that one either.
Oh man, you got to get on it. It's so good.
Literally, like it feels kind of like an HBO show you'd find on HBO around like 2002.
Oh, nice.
Like it feels like kind of like older HBO, very much like based in kind of its drama comedy aspect of it. The characters are all so fascinating in the show as well. Like each character will both make you hate them, but also sympathize with them at the same time. Except for Brian Cox, who's just the biggest douchebag in the world.
But how satisfying is it to say "fuck off" like him? Like,
yeah, that's really great.
That was actually pretty good. I might not have seen that show, but I know Brian Cox's voice, and that was spot on.
I think that's really the gift the show gives to all of its viewers, is everyone comes up with their own Brian Cox impression throughout the show.
One of my favorites was like, again, like I love listening to actor interviews and stuff, and someone was talking about working on a set with Brian Cox, and the whole entire time they were filming, he was just high as a kite the entire time. And he's just like, I love cannabis. Like every time he's talking to me.
Oh yeah, he doesn't give a shit. Like
I love Brian
he's
Cox
past the
so
giving a
much.
shit phase of his life.
Oh yeah, he's just like, whatevs. I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Brian Cox.
Yeah.
I just do what I want.
Whatever he wants to do. If you guys ever want to read an article that is pretty much a person beyond giving a shit about anything in their life, Google Quincy Jones Vanity Fair interview.
Oh,
No,
God.
okay, interesting.
And Vanity Fair interviewed Quincy Jones when he's like 85, and he gives no shits. Like there's one part where he talks about recording a session with the Beatles, and like Ringo Starr couldn't land a drum beat, and he's like, go take 5, and they brought in somebody else who can play the beat, and then Ringo came back, and Ringo's like, that sounds great, and Quincy's like, yeah, motherfucker, because it ain't you.
Oh, that's perfect.
Brutal.
And like he just talks about so much shit. He talks about how he talks about Richard Pryor and Marlon Brando hooking up in the article as well.
Amazing.
My man. Hell yeah. Get it, guys.
It is just like someone who just knows so much shit about people and is just like, I don't care anymore. Like I'm just
I would like pay big money to watch like later period Marlon Brando fuck anything. Like I think that'd just be like one of those once in a lifetime moments. I think I'd rather see that than like the fucking Grand Canyon, honestly. Can you imagine something more sublime than latter day Marlon Brando just raw dogging something?
Are we talking 90s Marlon Brando or 80s Marlon Brando?
I'm thinking like 90s.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking like Island of Dr. Moreau era Marlon Brando.
He just has an earpiece in. What am I supposed to do now?
Aging fuck machine Marlon Brando.
I love the what was it? The short little person character in that movie got casted. Because Marlon Brando just brought him on set. He's like, he's my friend. He's in the movie now.
That was another man who didn't have many shits to give.
Oh God, no.
But it's so crazy watching like his performances, especially like, you know, I would say like, you know, in the 50s through 70s, because he's truly like an electric performer. Like he's such a great actor. You know, just watching like the little things he does and how naturalistic he comes off, like I guess he earned a little bit of that ego, but it is just, it's absurd even when you know he's like literally giving it basically the bare minimum, which I can relate to because I've had jobs. And like I get it, Marlon. I don't want to fucking wake up either on a Monday. And he's giving it like 10%, but he's just knocking it out of the park. Like
I love how in Apocalypse Now, his entire speech is improv. He didn't even read the script.
And he was like supposed to come in like thin. He came in overweight too.
Yeah. He came in super overweight. He just ad-libbed his entire thing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, what are you gonna do about
it's
it?
still a fucking great performance.
Oh no, it's fantastic. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well, to finish my two last things real quick, I started reading Paradise 1 by David Wellington,
Nice.
which is a 750-page sci-fi horror epic.
Okay.
That
Very cool.
it just like I'm a sucker for space horror, and no one seems to write space horror that often. So when a new like big space horror book comes out, I'm like, ooh, I need to read this.
Yeah.
But pretty much the back says Paradise 1, Earth's first deep space colony. For thousands of people, it was an opportunity for a new life until it went dark. No communication has been received from the colony for months, and it falls to Firewatch Inspector Alexandria Petrova and the crew of the Artemis to investigate. What they find is more horrifying than anything they could have imagined.
Cool.
The most fucking cliche back, and I am here for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'll have to.
The first,
keep
I will
you
say,
clued in though, because I'm actually going to be in a space horror anthology that's going to be coming out, I think, in late summer. You might be
Nice.
interested.
ooh, yeah, definitely keep me clued on that one. So far, the first like few chapters are really great. I've read David Wellington before. He's a very good, like, if you want a fast paced, like, thriller horror book, David Wellington's stuff's really, really good. He actually wrote my favorite story. Remember that Jonathan Mayberry Nights of the Living Dead anthology that was released like a while ago?
I know of
He
it. I haven't
has-
read it.
He has a story in that one about the last human, which is an astronaut on a space station, and it's him by himself on a space station watching Earth go dark.
Nice.
But does he have HBO?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't have HBO.
Oh,
But he has Showtime.
And
maybe
the
it's
last,
that opportunity to finally watch The Sopranos.
but Matt, what about you?
Oh, buddy. All right. Let's see.
It's been a
'cause
few weeks.
It has been, and I've read quite a bit, so we'll just kind of burn through some of this stuff. I read, kind of reread Ring, and then I read Spiral, which was the first time I read that.
Oh,
so
dude, I read those books a long time ago.
Yeah.
Dude, Spiral, I remember the surgery scene in Spiral when they find like the thing inside the person's body.
Yeah.
Like that was fucking creepy.
It's interesting, like, because I read The Ring right after the movie came out, and I remember like kind of liking it, not really liking it at the time. But for whatever reason, I was like, oh, I'm gonna give it another whirl, and I did, and I liked it so much more this time, and I liked it way more than the movie.
I like how they treat Sudoku as like a virus.
Yes, I
Like
think
in the movie Sudoku is a ghostly presence, but in the book she's a virus.
Yes,
And I just think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's just, especially like reading it like now, so like post COVID, or not post COVID, but post this time period. It's just fascinating to read how this will spread, and just the way that he kind of builds this story, and then the fact that like Spiral, because I haven't read the third one, Loop, so I'm not sure, but I like how Spiral sort of takes a look at a secondary character in Ring and makes that kind of like the main focus of this. Yeah. And so it's just, I really liked what he did. It's a little bit of product of its time, of the 90s. There's some views in there that might be a little off now, but I think
about Ryuji.
Yeah, yeah.
I call him Ryuji the rapist. Is what one has.
Yeah, it's that.
You don't know if he actually did those things, or
right?
If he's just being edgy and talking about them, and I also think that's kind of fascinating.
I did too. I thought that was like a really neat idea, because at first you're like, oh, dude, this guy's messed up. And then like as you go, you're kind of like, well, maybe he isn't. But then when you get into Spiral, you're like, well, he's still sort of messed up too. So like maybe he did what he said he did. But, it's like you said, it's a very cool and interesting look at kind of like how a virus and like a ghostly entity, I mean, because she still got this power to send psychic messages and stuff like that, and how that kind of embedded into this smallpox type of virus. And I thought that was just fascinating, and just it again, so much better because throughout it Spiral a little bit, you get the idea that she comes back, but the way she comes back is interesting. Where like the Ring, I feel like I've talked about this a long time ago, but I loved the movie up until she climbed out of the TV, and then it felt like a joke. Yeah. And I know a lot of people like that she climbed out of a TV, but I think it took away from her otherworldly presence.
Can I tell you something funny about this author?
Yes.
So in Japan, he's known as the Japanese Stephen King, Koji Suzuki.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a really shitty comparison for him. I think he's a lot different than Stephen King. But he released a novel that was printed on a roll of toilet paper.
Look at that, bringing it all the way back.
Yeah.
That was great.
You guys got to get this guy on the show.
And you know what the novel's called?
Toilet
It's a short story, really. It's called Drop.
Even better.
It was printed on 3 rolls of toilet paper.
Oh my gosh,
man.
This makes me happy.
You can read it in English online, but it was printed on 3 rolls of toilet paper.
How come nobody does that now? That's such a awesome idea. Somebody take advantage of this idea and use it. So anyway, Ring, Spiral, super cool, fun to read, really fun to kind of see and just look, and the way he explores that, especially in the second one, it's very fascinating. There's a lot of like chemical and code talk that you could probably just burn through pretty quick, but otherwise it's super good. Let's see. I also read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. So he wrote this. It's fascinating. So the concept of this is the book the movie's supposed to be based on, even though I think this came out after the movie. So you kind of have to have that mindset of like, all right, well, this is not going to be the movie. And he's going to do some stuff in the movie they didn't do in the book and vice versa. And so for a first time book, he did a pretty good job. There is a lot of like telling in this instead of showing us stuff. So you kind of get like a little tired of that where you're like, all right, thanks for telling me this thing instead of showing me what's happening. The other things that he does is the big finale in the movie happens probably about halfway through the book, and it's literally just like maybe 2 paragraphs. So and it's I like
choice. I like that kind of.
Yeah.
Because like he kind of presents it as like a narrator telling, much like the movie, it's sort of that Kurt Russell telling you what's happening in the movie. It's sort of that happening here, and so like when he brings up that finale in the movie and he brings it up in the book, it's just this kind of passing like, oh yeah, in like 6 months this thing happens, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but like this home invasion happens, and then he just describes, oh well, Cliff finished him off, and Ray or whatever his name is, Dalton, his wife helped finish off one of them, and then that was it. You're like, wait, what? And so like you're reading that halfway through and you're like, well, is he going to go into more detail as we get to the end of the book? But he doesn't. The way the book ends is like a phone conversation between Leo's character and then the little girl from the show that he's on. So that's like the last 3 or 4 pages is this phone conversation they have, which is very cool and like interesting. But again, it's sort of like, well, this is it. It's a weird thing to kind of end it on. But like still kind of looking at it as this is the book the movie's based on. It's kind of fun to think about like him looking at this. We'll just say if he had taken some random book and saying, well, I'm going to expand this part and I'm going to expand this part and I'm going to ignore this part. So it's kind of interesting to look at that like idea. The other thing is this book is almost like a study guide on 50s and 60s Hollywood. It's like pages and pages of directors and actors and stuntmen and like what they did and what movies they were in and what that movie was like. And that movie wasn't very good. And, oh, this movie was very good. So like, and it's all like real. I had to look it up because a lot of it is like, oh, well, Leo was in some submarine movie, and then it goes into detail about the submarine movie, and I'm like, was that a real movie? And so I looked it up, and it was. So I was like, oh well, that's cool. He's highlighting all these things that people probably have forgotten about, but they're there. But at the same time, you're kind of like, well, what does this have to do with anything? I don't really need to follow some rando dude that has nothing to do with the story, but I'm going to get like 10 pages of it. So that was something. The one thing I did find interesting, and I haven't looked it up, is the story about Sharon Tate coming to Hollywood. There's like a whole chapter about her hitchhiking and meeting this guy and like having this whole conversation with this person. And then at the end of it, you realize it's Sharon Tate. And I was like, oh, I wonder if she really did hitchhike to Hollywood. So anyway, it's fascinating. If you like the movie, it'd be fun to it's a fun one to read. It goes pretty quick, and just don't expect the movie. And then let's see, I did read Matt's The Backrooms, which you guys discussed last week, and so just my opinions on that. It was a lot of fun. I am a huge fan of the Kane Pixels Backrooms stuff on YouTube. I subscribed and I eagerly watch and comb through the comments and all that fun stuff. So like I'm a big fan of that idea. And I do those deep dives. I'm like, oh, what does this 1 second mean in the movie? And what does this 1 second mean in the video? So it was fun to see Matt do that. And I like the letter aspect and sort of having this, was it the architect from the Matrix sort of be in this? I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
But so
I thought that
anyway,
was a lot of fun. Like,
yeah,
Matt Wildasin his books are always fun.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, like Melancholia was pretty depressing, but this one,
Yeah.
I liked what he did with it. I liked the idea of having to eat carpet. I thought that was a fun idea, and just all of it was a blast. So I'm sad I missed the episode that talked to him about it, but enjoyed it. And then real quick is I'm reading Excrement Mountain from Andrew Hilbert, which
fitting.
I know, I'm bringing it back too. It's just literally about a giant shit mountain in the middle of the city of Austin, and these this film crew, very small film crew that was filming a porn at the time, decides to climb up this mountain of shit, and it makes them all crazy. And like there's a director.
Fiction or nonfiction?
I guess it depends on your point of view on certain cities. It is fiction.
Okay. Whew. All right.
I mean, this is a very big mountain of shit. Like they can't even see the top of it.
So like you could see this on like a satellite map, the shit.
Yeah. If you look at Google Maps, shit mountain, I think it might pop up.
Is there like a neighborhood in Austin I should be like zooming in on, or?
I feel like the way he describes it, it's like in the center of town. But I think if you just hit Austin, you should be able to see this big brown pile.
Okay.
So it's like just there. So yeah, be ready. Be ready for that one. That one's it's pretty wild. It's one of those bizarro ones where he has no problems with talking about anything. So yeah, that was a quick rundown on what I've been doing.
Rad. Carson, what about you?
Yeah, so I recently read Agony's Lodestone by Laura Keating. That's from my publisher, Tenebrous Press. That's the book coming after Soft Targets, I think. Oh, April 14th, so it's almost out.
Yeah.
It's really fucking good. Really good novella. It kind of, I would say, touches on like found footage, but also kind of like Benson and Moorhead reality bending. It's about these siblings who lost one of their siblings, and then as adults they're kind of still dealing with that grief and that lack of closure, and then they find a new clue that comes in the form of a VHS that
Nice.
shows a little bit of strange footage of their missing sister, and they go on a little bit of a reality tearing adventure. It's very good, really well written. I really dug it. Check that out. It's dope. Reads fast. Beautiful prose all the way through.
Sick.
Laura does a great job writing her characters in such a way that they feel like they have a lot of depth, despite it being kind of in the novella format where you don't have as much space. So she's really deft at kind of using her writerly paintbrush to bring these people to life. Another one I read recently was Dark Cutter by Luciano Marano. This is actually a sequel to, oh god, now I'm blanking on the first book. The book's name, of course. But the fucking series, it's called Ambush Moon Cycle. It's like a werewolf series. Luciano, fun fact, I met him in person by chance at a bookstore. Hidebound. Hidebound is the first book. But I actually met this dude just like on vacation in Bainbridge or something, just like a ferry ride from Seattle. And I was just looking at the bookstore and, talked to the dude behind the counter. And it somehow comes out that we're both horror writers who are kind of getting published in the same types of places. And it's so rare to meet another horror writer like in the real world in public and talk to them face to face. Like we immediately exchanged emails and shit. And he's a lovely dude and a great fucking writer. His novella Dark Cutter, it's a banging werewolf story. That kind of, if the series follows this character named Rain, who is a werewolf struggling with being a werewolf, as they are wont to do. And in this book, it kind of finds them at a research facility where their werewolfery is being suppressed by chemicals, but it kind of becomes this monster matchup throwdown type book, kind of in the second half, which is kind of fun, which like scratches that itch in your brain if you're just like a kid who like got stoked by the idea of Frankenstein meets the Wolfman or something. Yes. So that was really cool. Right now, I'm reading. I'm gonna fucking butcher this book's name though, because I'm not a fantasy reader by nature. But I'm reading Elric of Melnibone or something.
Oh, Michael Moorcock?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm really enjoying it. I'm not a fantasy or sword or sorcery guy, really. But I'm writing a sword and sorcery weird fiction novella right now. So I'm kind of trying to delve in and just gather some inspiration and explore. And I read a Conan story and I was like, well, that kind of sucked.
If you want a good sword and sorcery, kind of like a modern take, I recommend is a Kagan the Damned by Jonathan Mayberry.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's a sword and sorcery book, takes place in a fantasy world created by Jonathan that's heavily tied into the Cthulhu mythos and the King in Yellow and all that fun stuff.
But so far I'm really enjoying the Elric book. I think
those are great.
It does it's easy for me to understand and keep reading. I feel like that's kind of like my biggest thing against fantasy books is that, for one, they're all like fucking huge, and I just do not want to read a fucking huge book with a lot of made up words. But I just don't. It's not fun for me. Like I feel like there's some readers who just fucking love world building. They love being dropped into a world and exploring that world with the characters and shit, and being confronted with new ideas. And I just hate all that fucking shit. I don't want any of that. I want to actually I love world building and I want to speed it along. Elric so far for me is great. It's a slim book. It's really readable. It has enough fantasy elements that you do feel like it's interesting, but not overwhelming. Like you're just not being dropped in. Suddenly you're reading some fucking farmer's almanac from like a different dimension. But I think what I like most about it is just how interesting of a character Elric is. I just love how moody he is. He's kind of like this cool subversion of what you think of like the big, beefy, macho, bronzed sword and sorcery hero is. Because he really is like a nerd that's chemically like enhance. He the only thing he's basically always about to faint in the book, which I love. He has to have like chemicals, potions to not faint and be strong. He spends all of his time reading, and he suffers from deep melancholy. So he whines a lot, which I appreciate because I am also I can relate to that. So I like that there's just the character is just this moody, whiny dude who basically needs an inhaler. And he does his thing. It's a lot of fun so far. It's a simple, easy to follow story with like some great fun character work and subversions. So yeah, I'm digging that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I got going on right now.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I think we're all set to dive into the main topic.
Yeah.
So before we get started to the H.P. Lovecraft,
H.P. Lovecraft?
H.P. Lovecraft. Thomas Ligotti story.
It's a Freudian slip.
It was a Freudian slip. Why don't we tell our audience a little bit about Soft Targets, Carson?
Sure. Yeah. Soft Targets. It's out now from Tenebris Press. It's a novella about two office workers in kind of a depressing data entry job who are feeling a lot of malaise and depression related to their job. They form a sort of codependent relationship that revolves around fantasizing about being both the perpetrators and victims of mass shootings. One of them discovers that some days are not as real as others, and this kind of tear in reality allows them to explore these fantasies in a way with where they suffer no consequences, or so they think.
Nice.
And it is quite the read.
It's short too, and there's like zero world building, I promise.
And there's no made up words either.
No made up words. They're all real words. Somebody else made them up. I didn't make them up.
No, that sounds super awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, people seem to be digging it, which is always like a good feeling.
Right.
I it always makes me suspicious, because I feel like so much of the writing community, or maybe I'm just being paranoid, it's like transactional, because the perfect circle of our Venn diagram is that all of our readers are also writers. So I'm always suspicious is that like, oh, okay, these guys are just saying they like it because they want me to give them the old 4 out of 5 on Goodreads one day too.
Right. Oh gosh,
one day I would just like to get just a slew of like, man, you fucking suck, quit art, 1 out of 5 stars. Like that would be, I feel like that'd be really validating just to know that like the people behind the reviews are real. But so far, I just have to trust that they like the book. People seem to like it. Unless they're doing really like 5D chess brand management or something. They like it.
They have like they know they have a secret plan and
those Machiavellian bastards.
Right. What the hell?
They're playing a 10D chess.
Yeah.
It's like super deep. Oh no, but I that's funny. I always think about that, and I always think about the scene from Airheads when it's a silly movie, but there's like a great scene where Brendan Fraser, I think, is talking to the radio DJ guy, and he's like, every show I play, it's just for all the other bands and their girlfriends, and he's like, I want to do something different, or like I want to get beyond that, and you bringing up that Venn diagram, and it's like sometimes it feels that way.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I always get excited when there's like someone I never fucking heard of who somehow has read my book or something. That makes me excited.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so many like, that's a friend of a friend. They must want something. What can I, an unknown indie author, provide them?
A story on toilet paper.
The wrong tree.
Yeah.
You can provide them with 2 poops a day.
2 poops a day.
Well, that's like 2 poops before I get dressed.
2 morning poops.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Wait, what? This came out like a month ago?
Yeah, about that.
That's cool. Good. Well, people need to read it.
People need to check it out. It's like Carson said, it's a short read. It reads very fast too. Like I think I finished it in like 40 minutes.
Whoa.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
It's a quick read. It's super short. I flew through the thing. I also tend to read a bit fast, but that's probably the nature of me studying English in college.
If you skip all the odd chapters, it's even faster.
Yeah, and if you skip, what you do is you skip every other even number chapter, and then every other odd chapter. So you're getting the book by piecemeal, and then you just fill in the blanks.
Yeah,
that's like the best way to read.
That's actually that's the author's intended way to read it. Is you have to skip part of it, most of it.
Right. It's that Quentin Tarantino thing. It's the missing reel. It's the missing chapters.
You have to feel the parts where this chapter doesn't really feel as real as the other chapters, and you know that chapter just doesn't need to be there.
I don't write books for people to like enjoy them. I write books so people can make their Goodreads goals.
Yeah, so. There you go. Like, this is a nice short one. It shows up on Goodreads. You can put it in there, and it hits your 100 books.
It's technically a real book, guys. Like, you can just find that easily. It's not a problem.
It's like you put one page in and be like, I know you're just reading this for a goal, so I'm giving you an easy page right now. Yeah. Here's just some blank chapters for you.
This is
for real,
reading.
Yeah.
This book is definitely worth checking out. It's a really good one. And when I talked to you about coming on the podcast, I gave you some time to think about a story. And I know we've known each other for a while. I knew you were going to pick something Ligotti, just because I had a feeling that's kind of your playground.
Yeah,
but
I'm a Ligotti boy.
We're all Ligotti boys here. But what drove you to pick this story from Ligotti, The Lost Art of Twilight?
Okay, well, there's a couple things. For one, as this might be surprising, I like the story. I think it's a good story.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think it's I'm gonna put my reputation on the line here. I like the story. I think it's pretty good. But there's a couple other things. For one, I think it's a story that isn't talked about as much as other Ligotti stories, and it's one that I think is kind of like a Ligotti's fan kind of like deep cut favorite. If I was talking to like other Ligotti folks, they would be really into this one. I also, the first time I read it, I thought it was an interesting look into Ligotti himself, like the kind of the veil of the cult of personality dropped a little bit, because you never really see him in his fiction playing with like classic monsters. And spoilers, this is a vampire story. So there's an immediate sense of almost like a sentimental attachment to the past, and through that past, like a horror icon, which I think is kind of like a weird wedge into Ligotti's psyche beyond like the existential melancholy he kind of puts forth, which I don't think is like false or anything. It's just kind of like, I feel like this story brings a broader vision of Ligotti to the reader as a person, just because it's dealing with something that's a little bit more relatable to us as horror fans, is that, you know, we probably all liked Dracula movies at some point in our life, or still do. And it's kind of interesting to think of, you know, this grand, weird master also, you know, just kicking back and being like, yeah, Christopher Lee rocks or something. So, but yeah, but now reading it again and stuff, like it's interesting because I see so many other elements of Ligotti's fiction that I might not have picked up on, where I was like, the first time I read it, I was really hung up on the vampire thing. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. And also it seems like we're seeing elements of Ligotti, the Francophile, in this also, which is like, it's like we're seeing like Ligotti has fucking interests. He has like things about him like that are just coming through the fiction, which I think is really, really fucking cool. As someone who likes to see the author on the page, it's cool to see this different element of the author than we usually see.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you bring that, like, all of that, because, like, first time that I had read it, it did feel, for me, I was kind of like, oh, this is fun, but, like, it's not his more broody stuff. Especially if you're reading it through, like, the, like the Penguin Classic, so you've been reading all of it, and you're just like, what is this, like, outlier? Or even like Frolic. I know, like, again, in the Penguins Classic, I think Vandermeer even calls out in the intro. He's like, oh, Frolic seemed more of his straightforward thing. And then he as he progressed, he got more into his wacky weirdness. And this one,
I think Frolic still has some of that wacky weirdness in it too.
Right. Well, yeah, totally. But, like, and I think, again, Carson, it's kind of like what you were saying too, like seeing him kind of come out, or him dig deeper into himself, where, like, when you do start reading his other work and it's just this, like, not vomit on the page, but, like, it's just him, like, saying, here's my philosophy, and he's like, where, like, Frolic is like, well, I'm doing this story about, like, a guy that is, like, a murderer, and like, but we're gonna do it from this point of view. But then you start seeing little elements when you get the story about the murder, and it's the same for that first time reading it, where I was like, oh, it's kind of fun vampire thing, but, like, it doesn't feel like his other stuff. And I kept, like, thinking at the time, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this was, like, a thing where like, like, if you think about, like, modern time, where I'm like, maybe, he saw a call for vampires and he's like, oh, I'll write a story about vampires. But, like, the second time and third time, because I think the last time was I listened to the audiobook, and like, hearing it again and listening and reading it again, you kind of, like, I think that's what I agree with on what you're saying, Carson, is just this, like, he is saying, hey, I'm just gonna do a vampire story, but then he's also, like, he can't help himself of getting into his deeper look. And so it's kind of fun to think about him having a constraint of a call saying this has to be a vampire story. And again, I'm making that all up. I have no idea why, if there was a call that he could, but like, when you, as a writer, and you're seeing calls, you're like, okay, I'm going to write a story that's focused on whatever they want, but, like, I'm going to kind of sneak in there and do my own style. And that's what these extra times you can kind of see where he's like, well, I'm going to play with this constraint, but I'm also going to look at it and say, like, oh, it'd be really cool is if, like, my main character came out of a dead woman, and, like, and these vampires are these, like, just dark shadows, and they have this thing, and because I'm Ligotti, I'm going to spend a day looking at the lake and brooding on the darkness and emptiness of the lake, or I'm gonna at the end dream about night and think about night all the time and taking over. So, like, I 100%, like, it's him not going full Ligotti, but giving us that, like, punch of, like, here's where I'm really dark, but oh, by the way, I also got French vampires.
I just imagine him, like, locked up in his room listening to Bauhaus on repeat as he's writing this.
See, I when I was reading this, I was like, this is Ligotti, like, 2 drinks in at a party, and he's just letting his hair down a little bit, and he's, like, trying to talk to people.
Oh, he's
starting to, like, break into, like, groups of private conversations and be like, yeah, who do you guys know?
I think because this story is like Ligotti having fun.
Yeah.
Like, you can clearly tell he's having fun writing this story. And I went through it 3 times. I first read it a couple years ago when I first discovered Ligotti, because I came late to the Ligotti party. Like, it was like 2016, I want to say. And I was on Reddit looking for, like, on r/horror, for some, or r/horror lit. I was looking for some, like, book recommendations. I saw a couple people talking about how, like, Ligotti's one of the best writers ever. And I'm like, I never heard of this Ligotti before. And so I picked up Songs of a Dead Dreamer. And from reading the Frolic, I was hooked. Like, I read the whole thing in, like, 2 weeks. And Ligotti's work just spoke to me in a way like many other authors haven't. And it was just an incredible feeling to discover him as an author. And it's funny, just the more you read his fiction, the more you kind of understand him. And you can be like, yeah, this story where like this guy dresses up as a clown and then like kills himself and becomes a living clown spirit thing. That's totally just like, that's just Ligotti having fun. Like he's hits up in a laugh as he writes this man killing himself. Like that's
I also thought like the story had a lot of had kind of like it still had his kind of pessimistic philosophy and stuff in it, which I thought was interesting because I think a lot of those stories in Songs of a Dead Dreamer, like compared to Teatro Grotesco, they don't wear the philosophy as much on their sleeve.
I feel you can at least sense the philosophy in Songs of a Dead Dreamer a little bit, but definitely works its way throughout all of his work.
Yeah, but like I think with Lost Art of Twilight, it feels like he's almost exploring it a little bit more explicitly than other stories in that one, because you have, for one, he uses like the vampire as like a stock character really well, I think. Because he is so interested in death, it makes sense to have this monster that is undead. And also I love the kind of central metaphor of Twilight as this kind of in-between place that mirrors the character's predicament, which is kind of funny how he elevates this like really, really pulpy conceit. Like he is, this half human, half vampire, which like
he's Blade.
Yeah. Just imagining a Ligottian Blade is hilarious. But you're right. He's Blade. So
he's the daywalker.
This is the daywalker if he spends all of his day painting sunsets.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually like a good like random question, because I keep trying to decide, was he really a vampire until they bit him? I guess he was, because he was eating blood.
I think it was just a half.
I mean, he was drinking human shakes pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Like he needed blood to survive. So I'd say like he had vampire attributes, but I don't think he became full vampire until he was drained.
But he was probably just lifting or something and needed that protein.
Yeah.
We didn't catch that.
He's like, he doesn't describe it, but the character is fucking shredded. Like he's ripped.
He's always asking Miss T. You even lift, bro? Come on.
Yeah.
Hey man, what's the macros on that?
He's like a giant like himbo dude who's just painting.
Oh, I love it. He's just like,
imagine a Ligottian bodybuilding story.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
Yes. Oh my god, that'd be perfect. I mean, that was sort of what was the Foxcatcher. It was a little that.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's based on a true story about the DuPont family, and this guy wants to start a wrestling club, and he gets a guy, but it also is just kind of this like degrading idea of like this guy eating a lot and then having to vomit to like fit weight, and he just can't do it, but I loved it. It was a great movie. It's almost there because you just get a lot of depressingness stuff happening.
Both Steve Carell and Channing Tatum give great performances.
Yes, that's the dude's name,
dope.
Channing Tatum. But anyway, that would be an awesome Ligotti bodybuilding would be an amazing story. But oh man, yeah. So this I think it's interesting. He because a lot of the beginning stuff I think is kind of fascinating. Just this like kind of moodiness of this guy, like half-breed guy, and like living with this lady that's taking care of him. And I did not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I just kept like thinking of this like lanky dude with long black hair that just like sits in the dark all the time painting cool stuff, and like.
Wouldn't it be cool if there's like a different version of reality where this story was written at a time where it could have become a 60s Roger Corman, like Poe style production?
Yes.
That would have been fucking amazing.
Yeah, no, that would have been sweet because I mean, like you could like totally see that kind of fitting of like this giant house, and it's just him and the worker people, and then like this like secret family that's coming, and he doesn't like them, and then like they just show up, and it's just
So relatable though. I like
Yeah.
to think this is also Ligotti showing a part of himself where he's just like, oh yeah, fucking in-laws and stuff.
Yeah. I'm not gonna pick him up from the airport. You know how far away that is. Like they're vampires, but like they still had to fly in. I don't remember if there's like
how do they get through like fucking customs?
Because I don't think there's like a coffin scene. I don't think there's a scene where he's like, well, because for listeners, if you haven't read it, there's a point where he's like searching the house for him, and like I don't think there's a scene of like boxes in the lobby where he's like, oh, well, here they are.
Yeah, which is kind of a cool touch too, that he resists some of kind of the usual tropes of vampirism, and he takes some of them, but it is a very Ligottian vision of the vampire when we finally do see them. And I gotta say, it's kind of unsettling. I think it's a really cool depiction of vampires in short stories.
Yeah. Well, and he does like a good job of like giving them this mystique and like bigger story that we don't know, because it's like two I think it was like three siblings maybe, and like a mom and a dad.
Little world building, but not too much.
Just enough to be like, this like what's their story, because they all have like their own little like in thing. And like he doesn't give maybe I'm misremembering, because I don't think he gives like a deep description of them as like your traditional vampire cloak and widow's peak or anything like that. He just kind of says there's 5 of them and like and lets
he
you
kind of, he spends a lot of time like describing their language. I feel like their weird dead language, which is kind of creepy. Also, another hypothetical film production. What about only lovers left alive, but the vampires are the Ligottian vampire?
Yeah.
Yes.
I did keep thinking of what's his name as the main character, Tom Hiddleston.
Like a weird 2-hour hangout movie, but with these like fearsome, grotesque, existential, despairing vampires that like are barely human. I think that would be fascinating. Yeah. And they're really concerned with guitar pedals the whole time.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it'd be awesome.
I am a fan of that idea.
Because like what he does with them, talking about like that, and like they're not the typical kind of like I don't know why I want to say zombie vampire like thing. They just have this like it's besides like the first time of seeing Dracula, it's kind of this like really first time of having a vampire be actually scary, where like most vampires you see now, you're like, oh yeah, I get it, they drink blood and they do stuff, and like, but this one you're just, because he kind of just, he doesn't give you that much, and like you just, all you see is this like room full of bodies, and then like them being shadows that drip off the wall and everything. You're just like, oh god, these ones are horrifying.
Yeah, because it could have been really easy to write it in a way where they make a typical kind of like vampire entrance where they are very like erudite, and they kind of speak in this like elevated language. They're speaking with a lot of like Bela Lugosi elevation or something like that.
Yeah.
But instead they kind of he totally denies us that at all.
Yeah.
And instead we just have these like weird monsters like gibbering to themselves.
I love how like they talk in like gurgles and like hisses and like just
death
throat
rattles.
noises. Death rattles.
Yeah.
And they're like sort of incestuous, but not. But then they're trying to get him, like, because he's, well, I guess he's not really related to them, but they're like trying to get him to marry one of them. And it's just like, what is him?
Did you see this as a gangbang story? Gangbang?
Is this Ligotti showing us his kinks as well?
I mean, this would be like high value production, I think.
Honestly, if Ligotti's search history dropped, I would buy it.
I'd buy it too.
I want to see what he's looking up.
Oh my god, it's just all puppet sex.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
He was like that scene in Team America. Yes, I loved it.
You know, more power to you. More power to you. This is not a kink shaming podcast.
No, you know, whatever. You do whatever you do. I always to look back at Ligotti. It's fun. It's interesting. Kind of just thinking of him and just as a person, like we've been discussing, because again, my talking about introduction to him, it was actually hearing John Padgett on This Is Horror a long time ago, and he bringing up Basteri and his magazine, and I actually read those before I started reading Ligotti. So this is really weird roundabout way, but being intrigued by the fact that he's from Detroit, which is 2 hours away and where I used to live, and so I always look at his stories kind of through that lens and just try to picture where he's talking about and who he's talking about and what he's talking about.
I every time he writes about someone living in a city, I just picture Detroit. That's.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think he calls it out too much, but I know definitely, because again, I'm listening through the audiobook. The Christmas one is specific to St. Clair Shores, which I know that area, and so that was the only time I can think of when he called it. But
also, can we give a shout out to the audiobook, because John Padgett fucking killed that audiobook.
I am so
I still
happy.
haven't listened to it, but I need to, because I love Padgett's narrations of Ligotti, especially the stuff he does with Cadaver Records. But I need to get on the audiobook for sure.
I saw
did an amazing job with it
at Necronomicon last year. The John Padgett was with the guy who does the Cadaver Records soundtrack.
I think it's Chris Bozon.
Yeah, they did a live reading of what is it? I Have a Special Plan for This World. And what's that one where it's pretty much it's a poem that Channel 93 did that Ligotti wrote about pretty much hospice.
Okay,
so we all go.
But that sounds badass. I'd love to see that.
It's called This Degenerate Little Town. This Degenerate Little Town.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He read that as well, and it was such a fantastic experience. We were all just
was there a good showing of people that showed up and stuff?
Yeah, it was actually at that reading. Well, the reading was in Bartlett's hotel room.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we all went to Matt Bartlett's hotel room, and
it was a gangbang.
Yeah, I know. Hello.
That happened later.
Okay.
I'm joking. It didn't happen.
What happens in Bartlett's hotel room stays in Bartlett's hotel room.
But just seeing him narrate live and listen to him narrate on audiobooks, he's the only person to narrate Ligotti, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah. He's the dude for the job.
Definitely. No, he's great. I saw one of the recordings in Philly last summer, and that was cool. There was only 30 seats, and so I drove all the way to Philly just to go see it, and that was super cool. I think they're doing one in New Jersey this year, so that if people want to go to one of those, it's definitely worth checking out.
Before we get back to this, I just want to say I want John Padgett to take Reggie McRaskell out of retirement and do a ventriloquist show. I'd love to see what his ventriloquist act was like.
I would love that too, actually. John's just he's such a nice guy, and so
he's a lovely person. He's
so
honestly
fascinating and has honestly some of the best writing in horror. His collection, it remains to me top tier of the genre. I put it up there in my top 10 all the time.
Me too. And he's just the nicest guy too. He's so generous.
He is.
And he's very kind.
He blurbed soft targets too, which was really, really nice of him. And
yeah,
for me as a Ligotti nerd, getting John Padgett's or as I call him, the Padge. The Padge is
Padge man. I call him Padge Man.
Well,
Getting that seal approval, like, made my year.
oh yeah.
You can't get much better than that. Then, all writers, we're all desperately hungry for validation. So getting a little taste of it is always the best thing, next to writing a short book for Goodreads.
Yeah.
I'm trying to demystify the arts. We're
There you
all
go.
insecure losers who are trying to fill out Goodreads book lists. That's all. Sorry.
We're a goal-focused society, and like Goodreads gives us that goal to reach.
What
Yeah.
is Goodreads gives us a dopamine rush. It's like you get that goal, and it's like, ooh, that dopamine just felt so good. Serotonin rush.
Look at all those. It's so funny, like to think. I know now we're a Goodreads talk, but I always forget how like it's sort of a social thing too, because like people can comment on stuff and like stuff. So I'm always like, wait, what's happening here? Like, are people seeing what I'm reading? Which is kind of weird. I don't need people to see the weird comics and stuff I read.
I feel that.
But anyway, vampires.
They're pretty cool.
They're pretty.
they like hugs a lot, like, and they give the best hugs.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that.
That's the subtext for Ligotti's stories. You just needed a hug.
Also, another kind of cool thing about Lost Art of Twilight, the vampires not especially sexy.
Yes, that's kind of what I was like thinking about, and that's I think what helps. Like, it's so often we see kind of this, regardless of what people think on Twilight, but just this like sexy kind of vampire and everything like that. And this one, they're not like the Guillermo del Toro strain vampire.
Yeah, they're probably like solid 4s, right?
Yeah, probably solid. Yeah, I'd give them that. I'd give them about 4. I mean,
media gives us 3 types of vampires, maybe 4 types of vampires. Sexy Robert Pattinson Twilight vampires.
Yeah.
Sad gay Amy Rice vampires.
Yes.
Guillermo del Toro the strain monster vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dracula.
Which isn't he supposed to be like a sexy vampire?
Originally, yeah.
A sexy immigrant vampire.
Did anybody? I mean, this is definitely off topic, but I always think of this when I think of Dracula. Did anyone of you guys watch like the BBC Dracula live action show they did a couple years ago? That's on Netflix.
Yes, one of those episodes was really good.
One of those episodes was really good.
One,
but I laughed when he had like fucking using Tinder just to have people come to his apartment so he can drink their blood. I'm like, yeah, that's something that like Dracula would do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Posting his hot bod and just
that first episode was really good.
Yeah, it was. I liked the central performance and stuff. I didn't like where the story went. Maybe I'm just like a purist nerd or something who wanted something, a little bit closer to the OG Dracula book and atmosphere, but I thought each one got worse, but like the second one was okay. It was still closer to what I wanted, but there's like all the weird like the additions to the vampire mythos I thought were really awful and just dumb and stuff about like gaining abilities from drinking blood, and I was just like, oh, I don't like any of this. This is not something I like.
Anyway, back to these vampires. One thing I liked about like Ligotti's take of the vampire myth as well is like, they weren't fully, but they were kind of living shadows.
Yeah,
and like that was really cool. I felt. I also loved how they were like very much drinking all the blood.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're like, we're just gonna have all the blood.
No crumbs. It's gone.
No crumbs. Like I love that one, like the bit when our narrator wakes up and it's the daytime and everyone else is like asleep, and he just goes and spends the day not realizing like
Yeah.
what's really happening.
Just have a lazy day. It's chill.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, I'll figure it out later. He's like,
hang out by the lake.
that he's that awkward host you come to visit and they just never hang out with you. And you're like, why am I even here? You're like, but I flew all this way from France or wherever.
If I have to go through the fucking TSA, you better fucking like have a meal with me or something, okay, motherfucker?
At least say hi.
Yeah,
I mean, they did have a meal. It just wasn't with them.
it's like, can you brood downstairs, please?
Like,
Stop playing fucking Halo up there and come down.
wash your
I
greasy
just got a
hair.
kill streak, bro. I just got a kill streak, bro.
The vampires like knock on the door and they just hear Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. Like the first time they see him all in his like gothy makeup, they're like, dude, we're not even like that. Like, get over yourself.
Another cool thing about the story that I liked is that in the Conspiracy Against the Human Race, Ligotti talks about kind of like sublimating existential malaise into art. And that's kind of something you also see in the Lost Art of Twilight, where you see the character kind of trying to parse meaning of his existence through these series of Twilight paintings and stuff, which I thought was really interesting. And that's kind of why I think this piece is so fascinating, because it's almost like a missing link connective piece between like Ligotti's earlier stories and his later stories.
Yeah.
While also
Yeah.
giving that window into Ligotti, the human being beyond kind of the cult personality and stuff.
Yeah. And I think too, bringing up conspiracy and thinking about like what his overall philosophy is, it almost feels like the big horror for him in this story is less the vampires and more the fact that then they'll become undead. Because, you know, like when you read all his stuff, he's always kind of like death is like the goal to get
It's like
that peace.
simultaneously like the most terrifying part of existence and the only welcome part of it.
Yeah,
It's very complex.
and
love-
this, he's like, well, these vampires basically turn him into one, which is an undead, which means he can't really die, and that's like for him, that's probably the scariest thing you can imagine. And so
Yeah,
I thought that
I
was.
mean, I don't know if I think for him, he just go outside and wait for the sun to rise. That breaks his existence.
This
But dude,
is true.
these vampires die from sunlight. He doesn't give us the rules. We don't know.
He
what
doesn't.
these vampires
He
do.
doesn't.
Does he even say vampire? I was trying to like
Yes!
flip through this.
No.
He says he does. He says like
Does he?
vampirism.
Oh. Yeah, I was like thinking about that because
He drops it like midway through the story, which I thought was kind of cool that he didn't like walk around it the
here it
whole
is.
time.
You're right. It's right there. Soulless vampirism. Because like you think about it, even like, yeah, those first couple pages where he's getting kind of the story about his mom or like reiterating the story about his mom and hearing that these people are coming, you would have no idea it was a vampire story up until that point. And like, it's kind of interesting to kind of think of him doing that thing. But then he does say vampire. I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool if you didn't even realize they were vampires until they drained him. And then you're like, well, what the hell? But
I just
anyway.
assumed when you were talking about draining him, you were talking about cocksucking.
Oh yeah, I mean, like he didn't specify where they were biting him, and all he said was he was sucked dry. So like this,
The narrator's balls are empty, folks.
I mean, like they hurt.
Completely.
They're empty. he needs
He has
protein
been
for
drained
He's just he walks funny now.
by his family.
It's like that scene in Naked Gun when like Leslie Nielsen's at the sperm bank and he has to have ice because he's just drained, and it's just like that. I imagine that this is what Ligotti was watching at the time, because I'm sure he's a big slapstick comedian fan, and he was like, "Oh, Leslie Nielsen's great. Oh, this dude just drained himself. I have a story idea." And they watched Dracula Dead and loving it, and he's like, "Damn you, Leslie Nielsen." You took my idea.
That's so funny though, because that movie, I fucking loved it when it came out. Keeping in mind, I was the perfect age for it. I was like 7, which is probably why I thought it was so sick. As an adult, though, it does not age as well. I would say actually it is bad. It is not a good movie.
Yeah, it's not about Brooks's better movies. It's
And I was not a good cinephile as a 7-year-old.
Oh no, it was like, oh, they're saying stupid fart jokes. I'm in.
I was like, he turns into a bat, but it's lame. Cool.
I will say though, speaking of cinephiles, we can all agree the best, most artistic, most beautiful scene in a movie ever is the Blazing Saddle Beans fart scene.
It's a classic for sure. It's a classic.
It totally is.
I would argue though, my favorite scene from any movie is the dancing montage to a heartfelt piano rendition of Britney Spears from Spring Breakers.
Oh god.
Or they're wearing ski masks and like dancing with shotguns.
Honestly, Spring Breakers is a really wild movie.
I'm always here for the Spring Breakers references. That was one of those movies that I watched, and I was just like, okay, well, this was made for like me. This is a perfect film. And
Well,
there was nobody else in the theater.
How that director just makes the most messed up movies, and then he got a big budget for like Spring Breakers.
It is an insane flick. Like the fact that it even exists, that it got money, like it baffles me how weird movies are made at all, because it costs so much money to make them. It's like, where are these fucking eccentric investors who are putting like all of their money into like art house films that no one sees? I want to meet these people. How can I be one of these people? I want enough money where I'm just funding shit nobody wants to watch.
Like literally, I'm actually on Harmony Korine's Wikipedia right now. Before Spring Breakers, he made Trash Humpers.
I haven't actually seen any of his other movies. I need to check them out. Like, obviously, they're going to be up my alley because I'm a dirtbag.
I mean, some of his movies, you have Trash Humpers, Mr. Lonely, Above the Below, Julian Donkey Boy.
That sounds like a classic.
And Gummo.
Oh,
I haven't seen Gummo either.
Gummo is wild. He also did The Beach Bum with Matthew McConaughey and Snoop Dogg.
Oh my god. It's like crazy talking about even just investing. It's like the time to write and act and produce and like make this movie. And like I think about it when I'm like, you know, like you're writing and you're like sweating and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get everything right. It's gotta be just perfect. And then you see this like bonkers, insane movie and you're like, fuck. This guy just like
cost millions of dollars to make.
Yeah.
Millions. I won't see that in my fucking lifetime. And somebody gave him millions.
It's like on one hand you're like, well, that's inspirational because like anybody can do it. On the other hand, you're like, damn it, why am I wasting so much time trying to do this just right?
Oh man,
God.
movies are wild. I love how this conversation has gone from like
it's gone everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna happen.
Yes. So this was a great story. Penguin Classics, Songs of a Dead Dreamer. Pick it up, read it.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's available anywhere else.
You can tell it's good because the font's small in the book.
Yeah. It's very classy. It's small font.
It feels like you're reading the equivalent of a nice bottle of red wine.
Yeah, you flip through it and you're like, what is this, Garamond? Fuck yeah.
Like I feel so classy. Oh, what did you read? It's this small font, gray page book. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Have you
barely see
before we wrap up, have you guys ever read the Nightmare Factory Ligotti comics?
No.
I have not, but I've always wanted to track one down.
I got a hold of both of them.
Are they good?
Oh.
So they're good, but
yeah.
No.
No.
So this isn't a bad thing, I just think Ligotti's work loses something when it goes from page to pictures.
But
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I think that's why they
there's-
can't do a movie on his stuff.
I think there's something about Ligotti's writing and his storytelling that just doesn't work when it's visual.
Yeah.
I think, they could do a Ligottian movie, and I think it could be really good, but I think it wouldn't necessarily look like what we would necessarily think of as a modern horror movie.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
imagine like it more being like a 70s auteur drama where it's just like two characters talking the whole time,
Yeah.
exploring like existential ideas.
So
and
it would pretty much be Waiting for Godot.
Bombed out factory, like
Yeah.
So you're pretty much just describing Waiting for Godot.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I do feel like they did. I think it's on Amazon. I feel like they made Frolic into like a short, and then I feel like there's a guy.
They made it look like a fucking like a NBC cop drama.
That's what I like. When I watched the trailer, I was like, well, this is all just in the interrogation room. Okay. And I think somebody else may. I feel like I saw the trailer for it. I have no idea what the name of it is.
In a foreign town, I think.
Oh, yes. Okay, that one.
It was pretty good. I like that one. I saw it actually at the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in Portland on the big
nice.
screen, which was pretty dope. And yeah, I like that one. I think that one's so far the most successful Ligottian adaptation.
Yeah, I think you could do a Ligottian like movie. It's just on the comic, it just doesn't fully work. At least it depends on the story.
Is
Yeah.
the
I will
art
say-
at least cool?
Yeah, the art's great. Last piece of the Harlequin. Oh man, that has some really great images in it.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's one of my favorite stories. Actually, that's a really good one.
They do that one in one of them. They also do a Dream of a Mannequin.
Nice.
Okay, that's cool.
So there's some good stuff in there.
I think my favorite part about Last Feast of the Harlequin, like there's like great horror imagery and stuff in it, but I think the scariest moment of it is just this moment of social anxiety where like the character watches people like beaten up on like a clown or something, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like a local custom, and then he tries to do it, but he like does it wrong somehow, and everybody's looking at him. I'm just like, oh, yeesh. Yeah, this is the worst.
We got a newbie here.
Yeah. Everybody's just like, what the fuck, man?
Oh, that's perfect.
But Thomas Ligotti, check him out.
Yeah, he's a pretty good writer. I like him.
He's
Tommy.
He's old Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee.
Tommy Lee.
Tommy
Oh,
Lee.
That guy's got a monster cock. I don't know if you guys have ever Googled that thing, and actually you should, and put it in the show notes if you guys have like a Patreon or something.
I'll put it in the notes.
Subscribe to our Patreon for a picture of Tommy Lee's cock from a Motley Crue.
Yeah, I'm Google imaging it right now.
And
He
just paste
posted to
Thomas
Instagram.
Ligotti's face on it.
Oh, God.
Oh, that would be perfect.
That was great.
Start going on like Thomas Ligotti online, start like spreading rumors that like, I hear the L Man's got a monster dong. Like,
That's like part of his thing is he just can't
yeah,
handle
like
it.
it's like 10 or 11 inches, man. Like it's big. You'd be surprised. Girthy too, like a stag chili
It's
can.
a little bit veiny.
Yeah,
He can't run because it like smacks his stomach and knocks it.
just looking at it, he has high blood pressure. Like,
He's always slightly woozy because all his blood goes down there.
that dude's blood's got to be aerosol by this point.
John Badgett like listens to this and he just starts like, no, these guys are done.
Canceled.
These guys are on my blacklist now.
You guys are wrong. Oh, beautiful.
That's a great way to end the episode. But seriously, check out Thomas Ligotti if you haven't. He's got a monster dong, likes his balls drained. Really great fiction. Carson Winter,
Total Chad.
in the morning. He's a cool cat. Wrote a really great novella called Soft Targets. Matt Brandenburg, what about you?
I'm just like, he doesn't write with his hands. He just uses his dick to write everything.
It's prehensile.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It's called Look Ma, No Hands.
It messes with him and it bends up and pees in his face. But anyway.
I hear when he comes, he can drown a rat.
He's done it like 3 times.
It's like a party trick. You ever dissected a rat and just found its lungs full of cum? Yeah.
Oh, that was the T-Man right there.
Yeah.
He just has like a big 5-gallon drum, puts a rat in there. He's like, watch this, guys.
Tom the Dom.
Well, if you want to send me Photoshop pictures of Thomas Ligotti, I'm on Twitter at BrandenburgDM.
And Carson, where can listeners get in touch with you at?
CarsonWinter.com. I also co-host a podcast, Dead Languages Podcast, where I am much like this. I talk about indie writing and make a lot of dick jokes and shit with my co-host, Gail McMillan. You can find me on Twitter at CarsonWinter3. Soft Targets, get it from Tenebris Press. Support your small independent presses. They really appreciate it, and they're doing great work.
Yeah. And you can follow me on Twitter at Rudy53088, and be sure to give Abyss a follow with @IntoStaring. And this is Richard Gerlach saying, keep staring.